I've experienced radical Islamic terrorism in a very personal way. My military commander was assassinated by the Hezbollah in a roadside bombing in 1999. One of my closest friends was killed struggling with the terrorists on American Airlines Flight 11. And in October 2015, my father was brutally murdered by the Hamas on a public bus in Jerusalem. My father, Richard Lakin, was a kind, gentle person, an elementary school principal who educated thousands of children, a human rights activist dedicated to promoting coexistence. He marched with Martin Luther King Jr. He founded a school in Israel where Muslim, Christian, and Jewish students studied English as a second language together. He wrote a book called Teaching as an Act of Love. On October 13th, 2 Palestinian terrorists attacked a bus full of innocent civilians in Jerusalem. They shot my 76-year-old father in the head. After he fell to the ground, they stabbed him in the chest and the stomach multiple times, severing all of his vital organs. At the time, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon came to visit my father in the hospital before he died. He wrote my mother a condolence letter. What the Secretary General did not do was to publicly condemn these Palestinian terrorists or the incitement by the Palestinian Authority that fuels this deadly brutality. Nice, Orlando, Brussels, Paris, San Bernardino, Tel Aviv, New York, Moscow, Istanbul, Jerusalem, Mumbai. Once upon a time, this list would have been associated with a geography class or a travel agency. This list is part of a very clear and frightening pattern. Radical Islamic terror is spreading like wildfire across the globe. This terror does not differentiate between religious, nationality, ethnicity, race, or sexual preference. If you have any doubt about the drama of this pattern, just type the words "list of Islamic terror attacks" into Google and click the Wikipedia entry that comes up. The list is mind-boggling. If you plot the trajectory out on a graph or pin the geographical spread out on a map, you'll not be able to sleep at night. It's truly terrifying. ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, Hezbollah, Hamas, and tens of other radical Islamic terror organizations are tied together by a unified goal: jihad, a holy war to spread radical Islam and overturn the core values which our modern lives are grounded: freedom, liberty, equality, democracy, social justice. This is big stuff. It's not academic. It's life or death. This is the backdrop to our discussion about incitement today. The concept of jihad, holy war against the infidels, has been around for centuries. So why is it spreading so quickly and so effectively now? The answer: the internet, wireless connectivity, and social media. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and tens of other social media companies have created platforms that allow poisonous ideas to spread and evil people to communicate and unite in a massive feedback loop. Jihad by the sword evolved into what I call open source jihad, where hundreds of organizations and thousands of terrorist leaders use social media platforms to incite, to motivate, to radicalize, and to instruct Muslim youth around the world, encouraging them to join in this horrific holy war. The open platforms of social media have become accomplices in this open source jihad, allowing terrorist organizations, known terrorists, and radicalized youth to operate freely for years. Prior to the advent of the internet and social media, incitement was not such an important legal issue. But with the technology to amplify messages, incitement has become a very real problem. So what is incitement? Traditionally defined as the action of provoking unlawful behavior or urging someone to behave unlawfully. In the United States, I think that you frame the question of incitement in terms of the Brandenburg test: intent, imminence, and likelihood or predictability. Earlier this week, New York Times Jerusalem Bureau Chief Peter Baker wrote, "Facebook has become the battleground in a global struggle between free speech and incitement. And in few places is that more pronounced than in Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza." So I'd like to circle back and examine the issue of incitement through the case of Palestinian terrorism, my home court, but just a small part of the much larger problem of open source jihad. Unfortunately, Israel has become a recognized world leader when it comes to dealing with terrorism, so our experiences are relevant for the entire world. The Palestinians have created a culture of hatred, resulting in an ecosystem of incitement to terrorism. A poisonous feedback loop with a single goal: educating their children to kill Jews, to destroy Israel, genocide. I'm going to describe for you this ecosystem of incitement to terrorism, and I use the word ecosystem on purpose. Incitement has evolved. Incitement is no longer a specific action or statement. It's about participation in the ecosystem of hate, which is intentionally aimed at bringing about the result of terror, violent, brutal murder with an endgame of genocide. First Israel, eventually the rest of the Western world. It's about participating in and strengthening the feedback loop, which eventually brings children to murder innocent civilians. To drive this point home and for some emotional impact, I'll limit myself to examples related directly to Ba Alian, one of the two terrorists who murdered my father. All of these examples are based on source materials available on the Palestinian Media Watch website. The educational system. Over the past year, schools, universities in the West Bank and Gaza have hosted numerous lectures, reader circles, book fairs, school plays, wish boxes, all sorts of creative things, all glorifying Ba Alian, the terrorist who murdered my father, calling him a shaheed, a holy martyr, and encouraging Palestinian youth to follow in his murderous ways. These events are regularly sponsored by the Palestinian Authority Ministry of Culture and the Palestinian Authority Ministry of Education. There have been so many events in the past year that I've lost count. In one particular case, Muhammad Alian, the terrorist's father, spoke at an elementary school in East Jerusalem neighborhood of Jabal Mukaber. This was particularly difficult for me as my father had been an elementary school principal and this school was less than a mile from his house. I asked the school for an opportunity to come and meet with the children and speak about coexistence. Of course, I was turned down. That's how deep this is. Extracurricular activities. The Palestinian Scout Association, which is the local version of the Boy Scouts and part of the Umbrella World Organization, established a leadership training course named after Ba Alian. They're teaching children that this horrible terrorist is an example for every scout. The Palestinian Scout Association Facebook page expresses hope that all 250,000 scouts in Palestine will follow in Baha's path, murdering Jews. This summer, the Palestinian Authority's Supreme Council for Sport and Youth Affairs set up a summer camp named after Ba Alian in the village of Bet Anan, northwest of Jerusalem. You can guess what they're teaching there. In the official Palestinian media, Palestinian Authority Television has hosted the terrorist's father twice on their show Good Morning Jerusalem, where not surprisingly, the host referred to his son as a shining martyr. The Palestinian official daily newspaper, El Hayat El Jadida, devoted an article to the life of the terrorist killer, praising his virtues. The headline read, Ba Alian, martyr and intellectual. The Palestinian Authority official Facebook page posted the 10 Commandments of a Martyr, written by none other than Ba Alian, all about killing Jews and destroying Israel. Praise from the official Palestinian leadership. President Mohammed Abbas has met publicly with Muhammad Alian, the terrorist's father, praising him, calling Ba Alian a martyr. Jabril Rajoub, number 3 in the Fatah party hierarchy, has spoken on Palestinian television commending Ba Alian's activities and calling others to follow suit. Mohammed Dakhlan, number 2 in the Fatah party hierarchy, is in jail. Otherwise, I'm sure he would have joined in. Funding the terrorist's family. The Palestinian Authority provides the family of Ba Alian with a monthly stipend of about $3,000, a reward, if you will. I think that this money actually comes from dollars that they receive from the United States. Social media. 2 days after the attack, the Hamas Student Union published a reenactment video explaining how to carry out a bus attack, encouraging young Palestinians to go out and do the same. The video went viral and was viewed by hundreds of thousands of people. In fact, I'm pretty sure that the way YouTube works, they shared advertising dollars with the Hamas Student Union on that video. There are Baha Alian Facebook pages and Baha Alian memorial videos on YouTube, all glorifying the horrific terrorist who murdered my father, all encouraging Palestinian youth to go out and commit similar attacks. Mind you, this is a micro-sampling of Palestinian incitement, just a few of the many examples related to specifically to the terrorist who murdered my father. There are tens of thousands of other examples, all with a very clear message to Palestinian youth. Go out and kill Israelis in an attempt to destroy Israel, and you will go to heaven. You will become a martyr, a hero. It's the right thing to do. This is a poisonous ecosystem of incitement that grows every day, every hour. The end game of the Palestinian struggle is clear, the destruction of Israel and thus of the Jewish people. In fact, they don't hesitate to say it out loud. As Prime Minister Netanyahu mentioned in his speech here at the UN in September, Jabril Rajoub has actually said that if the PA had a nuclear bomb, he would drop it on Israel. As mentioned here, he's next in line after Mohammed Abbas to manage the PA. In a recent sermon on the official Palestinian television station, the Mufti called for the destruction of Israel. And just last week, during the Fatah Central Committee elections, a music video aired 11 times on the official Palestinian television station calling for the murder of Israelis. Stab them in the chest, it says. Stab them in the chest. And yet the UN sits by quietly, morally bankrupt. Or in the words of Prime Minister Netanyahu, the UN began as a moral force and has become a moral farce. Thanks to Anne, 6 months ago I had the opportunity to stand before the United Nations Human Rights Council and issue a direct challenge to the Secretary General, the High Commissioner, and the Human Rights Council. Killing civilians on a bus is terror. I challenge them to outright condemn the murder of my father, Richard Lakin. I challenge them to condemn President Abbas for calling my father's murderer a martyr and for his relentless incitement to hatred and violence. This challenge was met with deafening silence. The passionate goal of my father and the people of Israel is peaceful coexistence. The United Nations' failure to condemn Palestinian violence and its continued rationalization of Palestinian terror is pushing peace away, making more deaths inevitable. So on this, the International Day of Commemoration and Dignity of the Victims of the Crime of Genocide and the Prevention of this Crime, I would like to once again call upon the United Nations to condemn President Abbas and the Palestinian Authority for creating a culture of hatred and an ecosystem of incitement to terror, and demand that President Abbas and the Palestinian Authority stop poisoning the minds of innocent Palestinian children against peace. Radical Islamic terror is spreading like wildfire across the globe, threatening to overturn the core values in which our modern lives are grounded. The Palestinian ecosystem of incitement to terror is a test case for dealing with the larger global challenge of open-source jihad, a budding ecosystem of incitement to holy war against the West, a genocide brewing which the United Nations has once again chosen to ignore.